Your Xbox in 2007. The red ring of death crisis got you for $1 billion. There's a new player in the console war, your rival is clawing back, and Steve Jobs just launched the iPhone and the App Store. But sometimes your best ideas come when your back's against the wall. So Xbox promised the world a camera that turns your body into a controller. This is the story of how Xbox spent $1 billion to build a Hail Mary to save their company, how that ambition nearly destroyed them, and how Xbox would never imagine where their new tech would actually end up.
Xbox is driving the industry.
This is about as big as it gets.
You've waited long enough.
It's exhilarating, man. It's an experience.
I give you the future of gaming.
To understand how this impossible idea formed, we have to start in 2007, which was a glorious time for Xbox until July hit. See, the 360 sold over 10 million units with a full year head start on the competition. The achievement system was being copied by everyone, and major multi-platform releases consistently sold twice as many copies on Xbox as PlayStation. For the icing on the cake, live subscriptions were generating hundreds of millions annually. Peter Moore, the face of Xbox, had achieved total market domination. Then in July 2007, everything changed. See, Moore wanted to be closer to his family in California, so he announced he was leaving Microsoft for EA Sports. His replacement was Don Mattrick, who had a very different vision for Xbox's future. Mattrick saw what Nintendo's success meant for other gaming companies. See, families, seniors, and casual players who had never touched a PlayStation or Xbox were buying Wiis in scary numbers. The simplicity of the Wii opened up $1 billion market, and Nintendo was leading the charge. But Xbox revolutionized gaming in 2006, so why couldn't they do it again? As Xbox looked into the horizon, they realized this war had more players racing to be the next big thing than they initially thought. With their legacy on the line and the board trying to shut down the Xbox division because the original Xbox lost $4 billion, this was their last shot.
They're continuing to sell defective hardware.
We're in the midst of a serious financial crisis.
Exactly what Microsoft doesn't need as it tries to compete with Sony and Nintendo.
A year into his new job, Don Mattrick realized he had to face 4 massive threats all at once. Their first threat was Nintendo's motion control revolution. If Xbox lost this battle, they'd be trapped in the hardcore niche forever. Their second threat was Sony's resurgence. After the disastrous PS3 launch, Sony had regained momentum with aggressive price cuts and exclusive titles. They were also developing their own answer to the Wii. Their third threat was the most dangerous of all, Apple's iPhone and the App Store. This threatened the entire concept of premium gaming. Why buy a $300 console when your phone could be your gaming device? Their fourth was the global recession. Microsoft's quarterly revenue fell for the first time in 23 years. One major failure could give Microsoft's board the excuse they needed to shut down the Xbox division entirely. So Don Mattrick made a decision that would address every threat at once. Nintendo, Sony, and Apple would never see it coming, and the board would be swimming in money. See, Mattrick came to the conclusion that traditional controllers were keeping out millions of potential customers from the Xbox ecosystem. So Xbox would go against everything that made gaming gaming and remove the one thing that seemed impossible: the controller.
The controller is a barrier.
Completely redefined invisible technology.
Our biggest year ever.
Microsoft aims to sell 5 million.
It is literally the future.
It's an amazing thing.
You really feel the force.
It's going to change gaming forever.
The first piece of the puzzle was finding someone crazy enough to make controller-free gaming a reality. So enter Alex Kipman, a Brazilian engineer with over 100 patents and a reputation for solving problems most couldn't. The second piece was the hardest. To give you an idea of what tech was like in 2008, the iPhone couldn't even record video, Netflix was still mailing DVDs, and the highest resolution on YouTube was 720p. And Xbox wanted to build a camera that could see in 3D, track 4 people at the same time, recognize faces, understand speech, and process all of this in real time. So instead of building it themselves, they asked Microsoft to lend them their credit card so they could go shopping. They first bought 3DV systems. Their cameras could map entire rooms in 3D. Then they acquired PrimeSense, originally designed for security systems to detect intruders. They also grabbed patents from a company called Kinect, who had spent years developing sensors for car backup cameras. Now they put all these components together and had their first working prototype, but it filled an entire room and cost $30,000. They obviously made some strategic cuts to the tech to bring it down to size, which seemed incredible from a financial point of view but would lead to some irreversible damage. Eventually, by summer 2009, they had a model ready to show the world. They just had to sell the world on the idea of controller-free gaming. E3 2009 was their one shot to prove that controller-free gaming wasn't just a gimmick. So Xbox went all out and brought Steven Spielberg to introduce the future. Players painted with their hands, a family fought using their bodies, Project Milo, an artificially intelligent child who could see you, hear you, and understand you. And of course, Star Wars. The audience was stunned. Microsoft had just sold everyone on the idea of controller-free gaming, while PlayStation and Nintendo stuck to physical motion controls. To drive everything home, Xbox committed the most amount of money to the marketing of a single product than any other company in the world at the time. The first iPhone, one of the most impactful inventions of all time, spent $200 million on marketing. The PS3, a flagship product, spent $400. The Xbox Kinect, an accessory, spent $500 million on marketing. It had Cirque du Soleil performances in Times Square, Oprah Winfrey giving away Xboxes, Burger King partnerships promising free Kinect bundles. This was all leading to the launch on November 4th, 2010, which was fast approaching. Xbox had spent 3 years and nearly $1 billion on their team, prototypes, and marketing to push their revolutionary weapon that would defeat Nintendo, Sony, and Apple, and even prove that Xbox will always push gaming forward. What could possibly go wrong?
You know, Kinect, it was a disaster. It was a train wreck. Its promise fell so far short.
Now, the Kinect was a commercial hit, selling around 100,000 units in the first 24 hours. But the first problem hit people the moment they got home from the store. Gamers came to find out that you needed about 9 to 12 feet for optimal play. And most families just didn't have the space, especially if they had furniture in the way. The facial recognition also failed in low light conditions used in living rooms at night. But even if you had the space and lighting, Xbox had already sabotaged their own product a couple months before launch. They made a last-minute decision to detune the internal processor that was supposed to handle all the complex skeletal tracking and body recognition that was showcased at E3 2009, all to reduce costs, which forced the Kinect to leech power from the 360's CPU, resulting in an annoying and noticeable 267 milliseconds of input lag. To put that into perspective, wireless controllers at the time only had about 15 milliseconds of lag. By 2011, the game library told the whole story. Project Milo, the AI child that had wowed at E3 2009, was quietly cancelled. The Star Wars game that Microsoft kept teasing finally arrived 17 months later as Kinect Star Wars, which was a collection of mini-games that was so far from what was originally marketed. No games also meant that the mobile gaming threat became unstoppable. Smartphones quietly became the world's largest gaming platform. But Xbox's biggest mistake wasn't the technology. In 2013, Don Mattrick made the decision to make the Kinect mandatory for the next generation of Xbox, the Xbox One. To make matters worse, at the time the NSA had just revealed that it was monitoring people through devices, and Xbox wanted to sell you an always-on camera. A year later, Xbox removed the Kinect requirement entirely, and Don Mattrick fled Microsoft in 2013. By 2016, the consoles didn't even have a Kinect port. And on October 25th, 2017, Xbox officially ended Kinect manufacturing, selling a grand total of 35 million units across its lifetime. But this wasn't the end for the Kinect, and I promise this story has a silver lining. Now, the Kinect had temporarily saved Xbox with massive profits, generating over $5 billion in revenue. But forcing it on Xbox One customers cost them to lose to Nintendo and Sony, and their lackluster game library meant that getting attention from iPhone app users was a lost cause. But this wasn't the end for the Kinect.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
See, back in 2011, Microsoft released official dev kits for the Kinect, and people started using it for things the company would never imagine. It was all because the gaming accessory was only $150 compared to similar equipment that cost tens of thousands. And this wasn't the first time other industries used gaming tech for different purposes. like when the Air Force used over 1,000 PS3s to build a supercomputer. The first place Kinect found its true calling was in hospitals. Kaiser developed Kinect games that could detect early autism symptoms in children. At St. Thomas Hospital in London, surgeons began controlling CT scans and MRIs with hand gestures. Stroke rehab centers used Kinect's motion tracking to help patients relearn basic movement. Xbox also saw how Kinect was being used and later developed the adaptive controller for gamers with disabilities. However, NASA had a different idea. They combined Kinect with Oculus Rift headsets to create an immersive interface for controlling robotic arms. Engineers could now control equipment millions of miles away. Now, the biggest plot twist is probably only a couple feet away from you. In 2013, Apple acquired PrimeSense for $360 million, the company that created the sensor tech inside the original Kinect. The depth sensing technology was used to develop Face ID, first introduced on the iPhone X in 2017. Now every time you unlock your phone, you're using Kinect technology. Now the Kinect's DNA lives on everywhere you look, which makes me wonder, in an era of let's play it safe, will we ever see this kind of raw, expensive ambition ever again? Today's Xbox has Game Pass subscriptions, cross-platform gaming, and optional innovations, representing everything Xbox learned from the Kinect disaster. They went from demanding customers adapt to their vision to adapting their vision to what customers actually wanted. Now, Xbox had spent 3 years and $1 billion trying to change how people play games. Instead, they changed how humans interact with technology forever. Sometimes, the biggest failures plant the seeds for the most unexpected victories.